Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Monotap, whatever. I am your host, Siren. If you are listening to this, you probably have followed me from one of my other platforms, so you already know who I am, so that doesn't matter. What matters is what in the world are you listening to? This is a kind of an amalgam. It's a podcast about games that also casts games. Yeah, so the first thing we're going to do for the majority of Season 1 is we have a D&D campaign for you that we have prepared and cultivated and basically winged in all possible ways. Why are you looking at me like that?
It's Wong.
Is it Wong? I thought about saying Wong. Wasn't sure. Like Wong, Wang Chong. So why do you care? I don't know. It's actually not going to get exciting until next week. So if you're expecting something exciting to happen this week, I'm really sorry, man. Come back next week, sit down, have a drink, listen. It's going to be great. Right now, all we're kind of doing is giving you a brief overview of what you can expect from this podcast. As I said, we have a D&D campaign for you. It's unlike, I'm going to say 90% of any other D&D campaigns you have ever been in or heard. We are playing the characters we've always wanted to play. You're playing the characters that your DM said, no, you can't do that, you whack job. We are playing the campaign that no one's going to let you play ever. So I have assembled a team of like-minded, mostly, except one who his mind is all his own, people to form this group and play this game for your listening pleasure. Now, bear with us, because when you play a role-playing game, you're role-playing, you're gesturing, you're making faces, and you're doing all kinds of things that you can't hear because you are listening to us through some sort of speakers and you can't see us. So it takes a lot of getting used to verbalize and vocalize everything that we do instead of act it out. So that's sort of a fun learning curve that we have in store for you. But it's not just about D&D, and we're not just gonna play D&D on the podcast and that's it. We also want to talk about other games. We like tabletop games. I like RPG games, and I stopped saying we and said I because everyone likes something different. I personally prefer RPG games. The gaming community is kind of rocky right now. I feel like there's a lot of negativity in a lot of different gaming communities, specifically online gaming communities. You hear the term salt thrown around a lot. We'll probably throw the word salt around a lot, but I want there to be a place where we can talk about it, and you guys can hop in the discussion on Twitter or other platforms that are yet to be determined, and have a place where you can discuss your games without fear of somebody making fun of you for liking a game that's not popular, or for liking a game that's super popular but you're not very good at it, because I suck. I'll tell you right now. I'm the worst. I am aggressively mediocre at gaming. If you've ever been to one of my streams, I stream on Mixer.com, and it's terrible. People come to watch me die. The end of my YouTube videos specifically says, if you enjoyed watching me die, please like and subscribe. Because that's what you're doing. You're watching me die, no matter what game. If I'm playing Minecraft, if there is lava, I am going in that lava. It's not an option. It's a thing. It happens. It's magnetism. Me, death. Hand in hand. So if you just suck at games, but you love to play them, this is the place for you. If you really like a tabletop or role-playing game that maybe the rules are really strict, but you like to modify them a little to make them more fun, this is the place for you. Because if you really, really are a stickler for the rules, you're going to want to skip this.
Now, you mentioned some of the games you liked. How did you get your start into gaming? What was the first game that you ever played?
I was probably, I don't know. I was pretty young when the Nintendo came out, and we had one, and I don't think we had one when they first came out. I think we had to wait a little while. And I say we, my brother's 7 years younger than me, and I know he played it too, but I don't know if he played it when we first got it. I want to say Sean was maybe a toddler. So Mario on the regular Nintendo, I still have that. I think it's here. I still have that. It still works. Snake, rattle, and roll. Don't laugh. But you get to this part, like there's one part where the level starts and you die immediately. There's no reason. It's just level starts. And so I never beat Snake, Rattle, and Roll at all. And, the general Mario, everyone plays Mario. I never played Donkey Kong until Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Super Nintendo.
Really?
I never played the arcade Donkey Kong. I never played the regular Nintendo Donkey Kong. I have with the jumping up the ladders and going through the thing, I never played that game. It was Mario and the Snakes. Oh, Blades of Steel. The hockey game was probably the first sports video game I ever screamed at repeatedly. Fucking Edmonton. They always kicked my ass. The Jeopardy game was great after I'd played it enough times that I just memorized all of this useless trivia that I still know some of that no kid is ever going to know. Like random doctors that performed such and such a surgery, and it's Dr. Kinsey because you've played the game so many freaking times. It's just in your head, and you're one of 3 characters basically there, but you could change the hair color. And you win, and they just sort of shake their hands in the air, but their hands and their arms are separate. There's space between their hands and their arms when they do their weird little jazz hands wave to say that you win. But it was great. We did have an Atari before that, but again, I was super young, so I don't remember it well. I know we had it. I know I used to play Grand Prix on it. I can't remember any other game on the Atari besides, your Asteroids and stuff, but I don't know if that's like memories I'm forcing myself to have, because Asteroids is your standard. This is the Atari game. Grand Prix, though, it was the same track. You go around, and around, and there were these blue bars on the top and bottom of the track. And I don't know if it was supposed to simulate a tunnel or what, but you would get so bored going around and around and around that you would sort of pull over in the blue things and pretend you're stopping to get a pizza and then keep going and see if you could still win after stopping. So I'm really good at the current racing games as far as making pit stops and then still winning. And I think it's because of Grand Prix and the pizza stops.
They're pizza stops.
The pizza stops on the Atari. Super Nintendo came out. If I could wrestle it away from my brother, Link to the Past is still my all-time favorite game. It's the first game I ever got so invested in. I would sit on the floor and have the map open and then try really hard not to look at the little secret hints and tips brochure that comes with it. And you're like, no, I'm gonna figure it out on my own. But I'd have the book and everything. I used to read every manual, every video game manual. I am sad that they don't still come with manuals, because I would sit before I would play the game, I would open it up and I'd start reading the manual, and my brother hated it. He was like, what are you doing? Just play the game. I'm like, no, I have to read this 40-page manual. And they did come with 40-page manuals. You would learn the controls, you would basics of gameplay, and now they just sort of dump you in, and if you want to buy the $50 player's guide, you can. I would have everything spread around me and go through the whole world and try to get every nook and cranny of that game humanly possible, which is why it's taking me forever to get through Elder Scrolls, because I want to look in every corner, and it's one of these waterfalls I have to throw shoes in. It's going to be fine.
No, you played... That's a wonderful way to start with console gaming. But tell me a little bit more about some of the board or tabletop games that you played when you were young. How did you get into those?
We had your standard array of board games of the 80s. Monopoly, Trivial Pursuit.
Monopoly, I think you mean Family Destroyer.
Family Destroyer, yeah. My mom always wanted to be the dog, and I wanted to be the dog, so there was a problem there.
You didn't want to be the race car?
No, I wanted to be the dog.
What about the shoes?
The dog was Toto from The Wizard of Oz, and I wanted to be Toto.
Was Toto.
Everything else could go bugger off. I wanted to be the dog. Like, sorry, Chutes and Ladders. I remember it as Snakes and Ladders, though, which apparently is a weird thing. Nobody else remembers Snakes and Ladders being a thing, and I sometimes wonder if I made it up. My grandmother used to have a whole cabinet in her kitchen that was filled with board games. So there was Yahtzee, like Clue, any one of like your big standard board games that are in, I believe, every human's house. Was in there. And sometimes, you wouldn't actually play the game. You would just get all the pieces out and then line them up and have a war with them. Mm-hmm. Or throw them at Sean, who is my brother, and got a lot of things thrown at him in his life. But now he could kick my ass, so I'm going to stop throwing things at him. You'd get out all the Monopoly money and you'd play a completely different game that you just made up with the pieces from the other board games. Risk. I always really liked Risk, and nobody ever wanted to play Risk with me, because when you're going to play Risk, you were sitting down for a good 6 hours.
Mm-hmm. Risk was not a game. Risk was an event.
It's a whole thing.
Now, with Season 1, I know we are going to be playing Dungeons & Dragons. How did you start playing Dungeons & Dragons? When did you start playing Dungeons & Dragons?
I had a friend in middle school and high school who, not only did he teach me how to sword fight, no joke, I will kick your ass with a katana.
To have.
He was super into D&D and role-playing games. We played Werewolf, Vampire, Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm pretty sure the version we played was Mike is making this shit up as he goes along, but that was really my first...
As all good dungeon masters do.
Yes, that was really sort of my first entry into role-playing games. He also taught me how to play Magic. Back then, the cards had white borders, if that gives you any idea of how long ago this was. But I stopped after high school because the games are so damn complicated. When you don't have any friends that play the game, it's not worth it to try to teach someone how to play the game, because how long do you have to just learn? Not to play, to just learn the rules of the game. So I didn't play again until a couple years ago. The same people we're playing with now were playing a campaign, and I jumped in and learned that iteration of the rules, only to now we have a different iteration of the rules to learn, but I think it's easier now.
Yeah, we're currently playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I know 3.5 is still extremely popular.
The book looks cool. The books look really cool for 3.5.
The books do look really cool for 3.5. But with 5e, things have been a lot more streamlined. With playing Dungeons & Dragons in the past, what have there been any large changes that you've noticed to make gameplay easier, or just make things better for the players?
I think the internet has a lot to do with that, having the rules more readily accessible. You don't have to have one book that you're passing around from everyone, trying to keep them from spilling anything on it. I mean, I still do, but you don't have to. You can look it up on your phone. There's resources, there's apps, there's your favorite thing in the whole world.
And that's D&D Beyond, which... D&D partnered with Curse Gaming, now Twitch, to put together, honestly, all of the 5e resources at your fingertips, readily accessible, and it's been pretty fantastic to use so far.
So I got back into Magic at PAX this year. I hadn't played in so long. I knew I needed to relearn the game if I was ever going to get back into it. And they had a setup where you get a free deck of cards if you go through their tutorial. So sure, I haven't played in 15 years. Please remind me of how to play. Because again, I don't know that I ever learned the correct way to play because I couldn't beat Mike. So I may have been doing it wrong. There may have been some shady things going on with my learning process. So I went and I learned the game and I fell in love with it all over again and spent so much money that I am ashamed. And we'll probably do some of that along the course of the podcast at some point. We'll play some Magic. We'll talk about some Magic. I really enjoy playing it, and I know I have a couple friends that enjoy playing it too that I think we can make some interesting recordings for you off of. I like card-based games, and I also like strategy-based games. I don't know if you picked up on that by my discussion of Risk. Really like Overwatch. I started playing it at the beginning of this year, so I'm really late to that party because I was terrified of the community and having to play with humans, but it wore me down, and I finally got the game, and I'm no good at all. I like to play the characters, I like to play, but the second somebody's like, oh, you have to switch, I cave like a weird fruitcake at Christmas time, and I have to constantly be told to do what I want to do, and then I just sort of let other people carry me because I suck. As far as Elder Scrolls is concerned, I love Elder Scrolls Online because I love Skyrim. I said before, my favorite game of all time is A Link to the Past. Close second is Skyrim. Because I played Skyrim before I ever played World of Warcraft, I feel closer to the Elder Scrolls games than I do World of Warcraft. I can't get into it. I want to get into it, but like I can't get out of the starting area and I feel bored, and the graphics are not even on the same level. I don't think they're meant to be.
I mean,
like they're specific to Blizzard, and I love Blizzard so much. But if I had to take one or the other, and I could only play either Elder Scrolls or Warcraft for the rest of my life, I'm going with Elder Scrolls. My roommate is level 647, so I get stuck in dungeons frequently, and I get in over my head because, again, I don't like people, so I will avoid people and just sort of run in by myself and then hide in a corner when I know I'm in over my head and beg her to come and bail me out. True story, happened the other night.
That's a pretty great roommate for you.
Yes. I'm like, hey, so I'm in this dungeon, and I'm trapped. I can't kill the things. Please help.
No, I'm pretty curious. In some of these other games like ESO, maybe not World of Warcraft as such because you haven't really played it, but definitely Skyrim, do you have a character archetype that you usually follow, like to the T every single time, or do you try to mix it up? Are you a different character?
I would be lying if I said I was different characters. I am always like the thief, rogue, archer. I've got my dagger. Like, that is the most blade I will have on me, is 2 daggers to go and stab people in the back. And I usually have a bow to kill them from afar. The first things I level up are sneaking and any kind of stealth thing, and I loot and thief. So you would think I would be a better Hanzo. But I'm not. But yeah, it's a huge change. Like when I play Hearthstone, I play the Paladin deck most often because it's Murlocs. And that is the one thing about World of Warcraft that I love more than anything, Murlocs.
No, I'm not overly familiar with Hearthstone. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Paladin deck and its play style?
You want me to talk about Hearthstone? How long do we have?
30 seconds.
Hearthstone is a card game. The rules are a simplified version of any other card game like Magic. I say simplified because it's super easy to get into, super easy to learn. You build your deck, and that's where the fun is. You get all these cards, and there's a bunch of your standard classes: Rogue, Mage, Warlock, Warrior, Hunter, Druid, Paladin, etc. I'm missing one, but it's a crappy one that I don't ever play. Priest! Like your priest cleric. You build your deck based on the type of cards that are available for that class, and then there's a bunch of neutral cards that you put in, and you sort of go head-to-head with people online, but there's no, you have exactly 5 phrases that are canned that you can say to somebody, so that was really great for me. I could play with other people without actually having to interact with other people. You could just kick their ass and go, or get your ass kicked and go. Either way. The cards do specific things, like if they have a battle cry, they do something as soon as they're played. If they have a death rattle, if they die, it has an effect on everything. The Paladin deck that I play is a little weird because it's Murlocs. It's basically, you would think that it would be like the Hunter or the Druid deck because you're just throwing out low-cost creatures to just stampede. It's like, I call it stampede style. I don't know what anybody else would call it. If you get a good solid 3 turns on your first hand of 7 cards, you're good. If I haven't beat you by the 5th hand, I'm probably not going to win, but you're probably not going to beat me by the like, there's no way we're going to make it 5 rounds if with my Murlocs, as long as they just keep coming and they overrun you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And because it's a paladin, you get all these great weapons that do like 4 damage at a time, and all these great paladin spells that heal you and damage them, and then you don't really have to do anything. With the Murlocs, because you're trying to just overrun them, I don't care what creature you put on the field. I'm gonna ignore it and just to your face every time. Every time. All the damage I can put on the board, to your face.
With Hearthstone, you just mentioned that there's only a couple of preset messages you can send to them, and that's something you really like. Are there other games where there's full interaction that with other online players that really turns you away from the game?
Yes. Oh, but first I should probably mention that Hearthstone is played, like, all of the cards and characters from Hearthstone come from World of Warcraft. So that's why I can feel more familiar with World of Warcraft without playing it past, like, level 20. I've bought 2 expansions of it and still haven't gotten past level 20. But I'm familiar with a lot of the lore and a lot of the characters in the game because of Hearthstone cards. Communities. The reason that I never played an FPS in my life until you talked me into getting Overwatch is because I had a friend who was super into Counter-Strike, and that's terrifying. The Counter-Strike community is filled with darkness and terror. All night long, they would just scream back and forth, and you could just hear the things that they're saying. And I mean, I use pretty strong language, but I don't think I could say that to another human and then just feel good about myself. There's no way. It's a game. You're supposed to play games to have fun. I play games to have fun, unless you're like an esports competitor, in which case you should still be trying to have fun. Once it gets to the point where it's like a chore or it's work or that frustrating, I don't want to play anymore. But just listening to the way that the people in that community talk to each other, I wanted nothing to do with online games. Like, leave me with my Hearthstone and I can say, well met. And that's it. Or, oops. I didn't want anything to do with it. It was awful and horrifying, and I thought I would never in a million years play a first-person shooter game. And I do struggle with Overwatch a lot. You've gotten the messages where I'm like, I'm all done.
I have indeed. Gonna bring it back to tabletop gaming. D&D. One, I know there's a lot of D&D and other types of role-playing games out there. The 3 that I like to just throw out there off the top of my head are always D&D, Pathfinder, and Heroes Unlimited. I know there are at least 11,000 more that I will never know about until someone tells me and says, hey, please check out this game. And I love checking out new games. But has D&D been your only tabletop RPG experience?
No, we played Werewolf and Vampire the Masquerade in high school too. But again, I don't even know if those were real words. It was just, hey, we're going to do this thing today. Okay, cool. Oh, I also want to throw out there that HeroClix is super fun to play.
And with this podcast, what was your main goal with bringing this group of people together to make this game at this time?
I know that in the past, I've had a lot of experiences where a DM has a world in their mind and they limit you on what you can do as far as your character creation, the kinds of race and class combinations you can have. I mean, there's pretty standard and specific ways that people do things. And I wanted to break that mold and play an absurd character. And I am. I wanted to play something that you're not going to see in your run-of-the-mill D&D game. And I wanted a group full of these absurd characters and a story ridiculous enough to make it work in. And I think we've done that.
I think we've done a pretty good job making that happen. So thank you for bringing us all together on this project.
I wanted to play the D&D game that your DM is going to say, no, please, God, don't do that. You can't do that. Get out of my house. And I think that's a good place to say next week we're going to start with that. Like I said, nothing exciting happening this week. Just talking a little bit about what you can expect. It's not all going to be D&D. It's not all going to be one specific game. We're going to start off with D&D, and I really hope you like the campaign because we're really having a lot of fun playing it. And I will see you guys next week when more exciting things happen, I promise. So come back. Don't just listen to this and say, God, this bitch sucks. Come back next week. What?
Open Callaway.
Like the golf clubs?
No.